On to lap 14 now of 32 as Schilter's the first man into the pits.
You're live.
As now Schilter coming out of the pit road. Now into turn 1. Straps on a fresh set of medium compound tyres, you can see by the yellow sidewalls. On that 14 now. Just under halfway. Those tyres should make him last on the 125 from California. The gap's starting to stretch out a little bit now. Frederick Larson is the only man within a second of the car ahead. As they go into Piratella now. Will he be able to keep that gap close enough for the DRS coming down the main straightaway? We'll have to wait and see. 9/10 the gap at the moment as we go back on board with the Frederick Larson. Will he be able to get that gap? But someone spins out ahead. Who's that? That's Jacob Beezer out of the very anti-outer, showing you how easy it is, just as Charles Leclerc did. He keeps it out of the wall, and it looks like he's been able to keep going. However, those rear tyres are going to be lit up, especially on them soft compound tyres. He's got to dive into the pits now, surely. Those tyres are going to be flat spotted to hell, and they're going to be destroyed. If he continues racing on those, he'll lock up all over the place. But I'm sure those tyres are very, very finished. As he dives down into the pit lane to go back on board Frederick Larson. The gap's 0.3 of a second coming into turn 1. There is still a lot of action going on here. The gap's out in front, starting to stretch out a lot. But as I said before, this midfield battle, anyone could win it. Well, they choose to undercut. However, Larson is on those hard compound tyres. So they will come into his own now as the medium starts to die off a little bit. As it looked like that was... Who was that? That was Ponce had just got lapped there in the 96. Now up only one spot from where he began. However, I'm pretty sure he has made his pit stop now. So maybe he will be able to get that lap back. We'll have to wait and see on that one. As we go back to our leader though, Riley Jacobs. Once again showing us how it's done. 4.3 seconds the gap with an 18.6 last time by. 0.3 quicker than his teammate Haugland behind. So he is literally there. So he's just so quick. Every corner. I haven't seen him make a mistake so far. As you can go on board, you can see how precise he is with the controls and how light he's being with that right foot on the throttle pedal to make sure he gets the majority of the grip out of his car without exporting it too much. You can just see he's in complete control of that car, showing everybody how good of a driver he is. It looks like it's a 1-2 for the team at the moment. Haugland in the 82 still sticking with his teammate. And if you have a bad pit stop, he may be back into the game for the win here. We know he does have the pace. Especially later on, he's been able to keep that gap sort of stable between him and his teammate. So maybe we'll see some action later on in the race. However, Schilter 0.4 behind Frederick Larson now. Channa has been able to get by. Will Schilter do the same thing here and keep it a 3-car battle? It looks like Larson is starting to go down. His pace is slowly diminishing on those soft compound tyres. They're not lasting as long as he wanted. Oh, excuse me, the hards. He should have the tyre advantage at this point in the race. However, Schilter's getting really close to the rear wing there, coming into the final corner of Ravazza. Will he be able to get the run down to turn 1? We'll have to wait and see. Schilter, though, setting the fastest lap of the race last time by a 1:18.0. Will he be able to improve on that? Channa is... Oh, excuse me. Schilter is showing us true pace here. As he dives down the inside, down the main straightaway. And he's still within range of Channa in front. The battle still goes on for 4th place. As it looks like... Was that Haugland? Haugland is off. It looks like he's still going, but I think I saw him in the wall there on the exit of turn 3. So what looked like an easy second place has turned into a battle. We'll have to wait and see if he can make his way back up the field here on lap 17 of 32. Another curveball throws its way. As you can see, the back end fishtailing on the exit there, showing that they're really, really hot. Which means it must be an absolute pain to drive that car at the moment. And I would not want to be dealing with those tyres. As we go back to the battle in front, Schilter has got really close to the rear wing Oh, Shanna goes wide. Out of the Variante Alta. Shanna or Schilter will have a run. Down the back straight. It looks like he sticks in behind. He's going to wait for the DRS. Down the main straight. He will flash first in for the pit stops. Will any of them go in? No, they don't. On lap 18, it looks like they'll try and go slightly longer, as it looks like Schiapolone and Barebu both go down pit road. As I shuffle down the order there, I'll have to see what tyre compounds they choose. However, the order still stays the same. The battle for P3, Schilter, Shanna and Larson. And Shanna is still hot on Schilter's tail. Like Schiapolone has gone out on those soft compound tyres, as you can see by the red sidewall, which means they are they're a softer compound of tyre. However, they will not last as long, but they will offer more grip and more speed for the shorter time. Schlegel is the only man to stay out at the moment, as it looks like oh, I'm mistaken. Riley Jacob has made his pit stop. As you can see, he's now on the soft compound tyres. We'll now pull up the pit stop strategy window and be able to see who's gone the longest. So who hasn't pit yet? Schlegel out in front, hasn't quite pit yet. Jacob setting the fastest lap of the race. You can see Shanna is up 7 spots from where he started there. P4 now. He's our highest climber at the moment, and he is showing us what it takes to overtake so many people. However, he's still yet to stop on his medium compound tyres, so he will drop down the order slightly. However, an absolutely brilliant performance from our drivers so far. Our top 3 are still really spread out there. About 10 seconds separating each. Without Haugland, it's really kind of exposed the gaps that were there before. However, Haugland's now catching back up to the rear end of Larson and Shanna. He has those fresher tyres, so will he be able to get by quickly? Nailing both the right and the left apexes. Getting on the power nice and early. Those fresh tyres offering the extra grip. Will he be able to make a move down into turn 1? To go on board with Haugland. He's in the slipstream. He has the DRS. He moved to the inside line. Those hard tyres, those worn hard tyres, just not putting up much of a battle there. As Larson moves on by. Next up, Shanna. Both his drivers in front haven't pitted yet. Haugland has. Who knows, with the extra pace of those newer tyres, he will be able to get past them quickly. But will he lose time behind them whilst battling, which may prove decisive? The other drivers such as Schilter may be trying to catch up behind. Schilter hasn't pit yet, bear in mind. Well, actually no, he has. Schilter has pitted last time by in the 125 with medium compound tyres. He pitted 6 laps ago, excuse me. I was getting people mixed up. Schlegel in P6 still hasn't gone down pit road yet. He's making those soft compound tyres last longer than the medium runners. I don't know what kind of black magic he's been doing. However, he's been able to keep on them tyres for quite a long time. However, Haugland is getting right onto the rear end of Shanna now. Will we see an overtake coming out of the final corner? Once again, he has the DRS early. Ducks out of the slipstream to the outside line, which will turn to the inside of turn 1. And the move is already completed. You can see we have a lap car out in front. That is Angel Ponce. Will he step out of the way? Will he prove an issue? Will he bunch Shanna back up to Haugland? We'll have to wait and see. However, I think Haugland will be able to stretch out that gap because of those fresh tyres. See, Haugland is pushing hard on those tyres at the moment. He's trying to get every inch of pace he can out of that car. Every single last inch of it. Here's medium compound tyres, offering slightly decreased grip than the softs that Riley is on. However, they will last the time, and that gap may start to go down slowly. However, that gap to Schilter is really all he's got to be worrying about. Will he be able to get back up to second place? 3.3 seconds is the gap between the two drivers. You see, Alexander Shanna has gone down pit road now. So finally he's taken the plunge down into pit road. I expect him to put on the soft compound tyres for the last 9 laps of this race. He overshoots his pit stall there. Not quite ideal from the number 45. As he makes his way out now. The soft compound tyres, he's going to be pushing hard on those. As Brebu slowly comes round now. As he passes him. So Brebu, after having pitting early... Oh no! Shanna spun out of pit road, came off the limiter, and I think he just gave it too much beans. He definitely hit the wall on the outside there. Will he have damage? Those tyres are going to be lit up very, very early on. These next few corners are going to be very, very dicey. However, that sets him back 10 seconds to the cars he was battling before. You never would have seen that, ladies and gentlemen. I was not expecting that. You can see then. The gap's starting to definitely open up between these drivers. Riley out front. 13.4 seconds the gap to Schilter. So without Haugland, that is a very, very big gap to have. He can manage this race. He can't... Well, he shouldn't really be going 100% pace. He really needs to take this safely, because we've seen from other drivers a mistake could literally mean the end of your race like that. You could be leading by 30 seconds, but if you bin it on the last lap, it all means nothing. Now he's coming back up now. Back up behind Alexander Shanna, who pulls off to the left-hand side, lets him go, which is the polite thing to do. Now coming out of the final Ravazza. Sort of stretched the gap already, but really, I'm just surprised at how much car control he has over all the other drivers. He hasn't been kicking it out wide. He hasn't made a single mistake, which is why he's 13 seconds up. He'll definitely be a driver I'll be looking at for the remainder of the season as maybe a contender for the championship. However, it is early days. But I do think we have world champion material out of this guy. Although, we switch back to Haugland and the battle for second place. The gap has come down to 1.3 seconds now. As he now come towards lap traffic there. It looks like he's going to stay on the outside of Tosa, impeding a little bit on the exit. However, 1.5 seconds. We go on board with Howland. Coming into Piratella, you can see how quick these modern Formula 1 cars can take that corner. Is absolutely incredible. Flat Brachy Minerali braking back on the power over the crest can be very, very loose, as the aero isn't quite charged up enough. Over 1.2 seconds is the gap now coming into the final corner. Will he be able to get those extra 2 tenths and get the DRS this lap, or will he have to wait till next time? 1 second. Not quite enough. 1.03 seconds the gap. just about out of the DRS zone. He'll have it next time by. Whether that gap is coming down and down. Haugland putting on the meat. Or putting... Okay, I don't know where I got that one from, but... He's giving it the full beans here tonight. Putting on a show for us at home. 1.0 seconds the gap. He hasn't quite gained as much. As I say that, the gap comes down to 9/10 of a second now. Has Schulter been saving his tyres? Will he be able to switch it back on again? Will he put much of a defence? I believe he may try and defend. However, we still have quite a few laps remaining of this Grand Prix. Lap 26 of 32. The Schulter must be thinking that he can't hold him off for long. Because with that DRS, it can gain so much time. As 5/10 it is now. 5/10 from last lap in the same position. Haugland is really giving it the beans. As now coming into the final corner. 4/10 the gap. 3/10. Now the final corner. That DRS flap will come open shortly. Schulter pulls the left hand side. Tries to go defensive. As no, he lets him go there. Maybe to try and get the draft into turn 1. I'm not quite too sure. However, they're still too wide. And the move is complete. Haugland back up into P2. Listen to the sound of that V6 turbo hybrid engine screaming away at the top of his lungs. As we go back to Jacob, who's I know I keep saying it, but he's really putting on a show tonight. He's just got to bring it home. Lap 27 of 32. 5 laps remain as he crosses the line. That's 5 laps he has to keep it clean. As we go back, so that gap now goes to 1 second coming into Ravazza. It looks like Schulter's fight back is in vain. 1.2 seconds it is crossing the DRS line. So your top 3 at the moment goes Jacob, Haugland and Schulter. Both 3 drivers that are rather quick. Quicker than the competition. Then we have Schlegel behind. Then Chaperon rounding out the top 5. The highest climber at the moment. Andrew Bedrosian starting... Oh, currently he's in 8th place. Gained 4 places. The start of P4 or P14. Oh, excuse me, P12 after making his way back up. My maths has definitely got a lot worse. Once again, we would like to apologise, however, for the streaming issues earlier on. Just a little bit of an issue with some YouTube settings. However, it's sorted now, and we are live. For the first part of this race, it has been pre-recorded, so don't you worry if you missed any of it. However, Schulter's gaining that gap back again. 6/10 the gap now between these drivers. So it looks like the battle is back on. I'm not sure what happened to Haugland. However, his pace is diminishing as that gap's come down to 7/10 of a second. Will Schulter be able to hold that gap until the main straight? We'll have to wait and see. 8/10 it is coming to Aki Minerali. That gap is getting bigger, but will he be able to hold it? There's 1.4 seconds of the gap, so unfortunately he can't quite do it. As we now have 2 laps remaining of this Grand Prix. Lap 30 of 32. We've seen a lot of battles going on, especially in the midfield. And we've also seen some drivers manage to stretch the gap so they get a little bit bigger towards this end of the race. As you tend to see in these faster cars, you have drivers who are just exceeding ability compared to everyone else, who just have that extra little bit of pace to unlock that just stretch that gap away. And the longer the race, the longer that gap gets. However, it is very, very easy to lose this car, as a couple of drivers have demonstrated here tonight about how easy it is to lose that rear end or boat out and understeer in the low speed corners, so the cars just don't have the same grip they used to have. This W13 is still very, very new to the service. So a lot of drivers may be still trying to get used to the physics and how the cars have changed over the 2021 W12 Mercedes, which definitely still handles very, very grippy. However, in the low speed, it just has so much more aero, as the aerodynamics on these new cars do take a lot longer to charge up. Due to the ground using ground effect. I'm not quite sure what's happened to Schilter here. It looks like the revs on that Mercedes W13 are starting to go a little bit low. I'm concerned that some fuel saving might be going on, as it looks like he's going through the gears very slowly. Should explain why he's lost 6.5 seconds. Yeah, he's clutching in. So it looks like Schilter may have underfueled the car, which means some major fuel saving is going on here on the penultimate lap, which definitely brings Schlegel back into the equation. He's 7.6 seconds behind, and he's going quicker and quicker. As we look at the gap last time by, Schilter set at 122.8, however he's fuel saving even more now. Schlegel with a 118.7. 4 seconds quicker last time by, and that gap is coming down and down. 5.4 seconds it is coming to the final lap. Schlegel will be seeing it on his relative and pushing like hell to close that gap down. This is Schlegel's chance to get onto the podium here. The driver who we thought had an easy podium with an easy gap is starting to come further down and further down. Schlegel in P4 at the moment has a lap traffic in front of him. He clears him, and he can see Schilter up at the top of the hill coming into the chicane. This final glimpse of hope. 2 seconds the gap coming onto the final lap. Just as I thought it was all down and over, we have drama here. Coming into the final corner. 7 tenths to gap. He'll have DRS. This may be an easy move here. And Schilter pulls off to the left hand side. He has to let him go. So that's Schlegel up into P3. Onto the final lap of this race. Just we thought it's over. As you go back to the 81. Chiapellone. 4.2 seconds to the gap to Schilter. Will he close that gap? That is the question. .6 seconds, excuse me, is the gap at the moment. However, that has come down very, very quickly. Will more fuel saving have to go? However, Jacob Riley crosses the line to win the San Marino Grand Prix. An absolutely dominant performance from him. Haugland, his teammate, coming home in second place, making it a 1-2. However, the battle is still not over. Schlegel still has 2 corners to go here today. This Chiapellone is coming to 2.4 seconds now. We'll go on board with him as the final chase happens. Will Schilter make it to the end of the race? Coming into Ravazza, that gap is going down. Will he manage to snatch 4th place from him? Accelerating out of the final corner. He's slow. He crosses the line at the last second. Wow. Schilter not having a brilliant race there. Finishing 1.2 seconds behind. Getting stolen. He thought he had a podium, and it was all over in the dying moments of this race. Final drivers to cross the line. Barbaru and Beezer there is to go. As Barbaru comes out of the final corner. To round out a P6. As Beezer crossed the line. Finally. That is the end of the race, gentlemen. Looks like, unfortunately, the results won't come up here for the race. Not quite as to sure why this is happening. However, whilst we have a 3-minute warm-up, we have a little bit of time to talk about the race. So, no drivers are going out at the moment. However, we saw that fuel battle definitely came down to the wire there, with Schilter running out of fuel near to the end of the race and having to save fuel very, very heavily, giving away the position. Which is very, very unfortunate for him for sure. However, we can see how punishing this track can be. For track limits as well as drivers losing the rear end, it is very, very difficult. And it just shows the absolute skill that is required to drive these Formula 1 cars. Also go through this submission, we're going to put on a small advert for you and we'll be back after the break. And welcome back again to this sunny morning in Italy here for the Enzo E. Dino Ferrari iFormula League sprint race here today. So we're just waiting for the warm-up to finish very, very shortly. And we'll start gridding for the race. You can just see skidding off there, coming out of the Tosa chicane, or Tosa hairpin. Just proving my point, as we earlier said. As we just watch the drivers go around, we may see a different tyre choice here. The sprint race is only 10 laps here today, Imola. So the soft compound tyre should be the tyre of choice I'm expecting these drivers to take. However, some may try the mediums, as maybe the softs will start to drop off very quickly, as we do know this track is quite demanding on the tyres. However, I think the softs will be able to last long enough. However, we may see some shake-up going on. Some drivers we haven't seen in the podium may have the chance to pick up the pace and maybe take it. As the one will finish very, very shortly. As we're given another smoke show coming out of Villeneuve. Right then, as we begin the grid here, here is your grid for the sprint race. So Frederick Larson starting in P1, followed by Ponce on the second row. Alexander Shanna followed by Gobthorpe. Then Andrew Ross, Bedrosian even starting P5. Jacob Beezer rounding out the third row. Barebu followed by Schilter. Then Schiappellone starting 9th. Schlegel rounding out 10th on the 5th row, followed by Haugland, and then Riley Jacobs starting P12. The reverse grid here will definitely shake up some action, as maybe we can see, well, we've seen that Jacob does have the pace, but will he have the overtaking ability to make it through the grid? As we begin this race, so as the lights go out now, we have 5 lights, and away we go for the San Marino sprint. Larson off to really good stars. We have action there. Massive, massive incident. Cars spinning all over the place. The top 3 managed to get out of it. However, that has shaken up a lot of cars gone, including Jacob Riley. You can see out in front of us, Frank Beezer making it slowly. Off the grid where Frederick Larson is your new leader. As I said, this could shake it up. We have a 3-way battle for third place here with Larson, Shanna and Schilter following up closely. Bedrosian in P4. And Barebu very, very close to him, 4 tenths behind, followed by Schlegel. The drivers are very, very close here today. And we know they're close in pace in their groups. However, Haugland is still running. Just going to see. I don't think he has damage. Or at least one that is visible. Very, very lucky from him. However, though, we go back to a leader, Frederick Larson. It looks like Barebu has had a little bit of a spin there. So once again, these drivers are proving how difficult it is to drive. As it looks like Schilter's managed to get past Shanna. However, Shanna will have the run coming down the main straight. He won't have DRS this time by, but he will have the slipstream. Will it be enough? No. Shanna's going slowly there. Not quite so sure why that's happened, as that gap stretches to 2.7 seconds. Bedrosian 1 second behind Shanna. Leader Frederick Larson stretching out a 1.1 second advantage here. The Schilter behind is every man for himself here in this sprint race. As we're here on lap 2 of 10, 9 laps remain. As now the gaps are starting to spread out a little bit between our drivers. Only 7 remain. So our grid is halves. The fastest drivers. Jacob being wiped out there. Just not really what he wanted. This is what I mean. He could really shake it up. As it looks like, oh, he won't be scoring points for this race. Which means it gives someone else the chance to gain those points back. However, this race doesn't pay as much points as the feature does. However, they may mean a lot in the grand scheme of things later on if the championship does go down to a fight. However, Schilter's closed that gap down to 0.6 of a second coming down the main straight. As we go on to lap 3 now, DRS has been enabled. As it looks like he isn't quite able to close that gap. However, he does have the fastest lap of the race with a 1:17.9. This is the fastest we've seen so far. Schilter chasing down Frederick Larson for the chance of getting DRS. However, that gap has stretched, but we do know Schilter does have pace. on this off-ramp montage. You can just see how much quicker these cars are, and they don't have to worry about tyre saving as much. However, 1.2 going into the left right chicane. As no. Looks like Larson was a little bit slow through there, and Schulter was able to close that gap just a little bit. However, down the straights, it looks like Larson is just so much quicker there. Maybe due to ERS deployment. However, Schulter is close enough for DRS this time by, as he goes down the straight, as the flap doesn't open. Very interesting. It looks like he may not actually have had DRS. Which is interesting, as Frederick Larsen sets the fastest lap of the race then, a 1:17.7, 3/10 quicker than Schulter. However, the battle is still on, 6/10 to gap to Frederick Larsen. These drivers are giving it absolutely everything here for the chance to stay on that top spot. Coming into Piratella, a very, very easy corner to run out wide. 3/10 the gaps now. The Schulter has turned back on the heat. It is closing. It's their rear diffuser into the gearbox of Frederick Larsen. It's interesting to see what kind of game they'll play with the battery. It looks like Haugland there, turning the fastest lap of the race with a 1:16.6. Yeah, number 82 at Force Box from where he started. P7, as it says on the timing tower, he's a lap down, which is not saying the same on my timing software. However, he is 27 seconds behind Barebu. Schulter has the DRS. He goes round the outside of Frederick Larsen into turn 1, making the move stick, and up into the lead of this race. The battle heating up now. We're halfway through the sprint already, showing you just how quick this race can go by, as Larsen makes a mistake behind. Larsen goes wide coming out of Villeneuve, and he's extended that gap to 1.1 seconds. He has lost the DRS to Schulter ahead. Will he be able to close that gap once again? We know Schulter does have pace here and there that he can exploit. We also know Larsen does not lack pace himself. Battle ensues. Will he be able to close that gap under a second? As we go into the Variante Alta, Schulter stretches the gap to 1.1 seconds. Oh, he runs right at Ravazza. That gap getting bigger and bigger. Big mistake, very, very costly mistake from Larsen. Not what he wants there. However, he is still just about in touch with Schulter. It's not over yet. However, you can see that lap time difference because of the mistake. Schulter setting his personal best lap time for 1:17.3. 2 seconds slower as Frederick Larsen that last time by. As you can see, the rear of his car just not behaving the way he wants it to. There's 2 seconds is the gap now. Larsen was in the lead of the race just a couple laps ago, and now he's 2 seconds behind on equal worn tyres. We're going to move slowly back to Frank Beezer, who's catching up to the back of the number 13 of Marianne Baraboo. He will have, as it stands, DRS this time by. However, that gap is staying quite on the high side. It's going down just a little bit there into Piratella. Beezer will be pushing to try and get past here now, as there isn't really anyone else around. So it is the gap between them two, or the battle between them two, will mean the difference between the points he gets at the end of the race. He will be the only car he has in the battle. Here on lap 7 of 10. 4 laps remain here, and we're only 8 minutes into this race. Lap times are very, very short here at Autodromo Internazionale Enzo e Dino Ferrari. Or we could just say Imola, the shorter name. Obviously the home of the San Marino Grand Prix for so many years, up until that fateful day in 1994. Or 1974, excuse me. With the loss of Roland Ratzenberger and Ayrton Senna, both great Formula 1 drivers of their day. However, Jacob Riley's been able to get back up on track, and he's only 4 tenths behind Ben Goldthorpe. We know Goldthorpe does have pace. Will he have enough though to defend from Jacob? Jacob sits in behind with his freshly repaired car. Coming through Aki Minerali. Will he have what it takes? Will Jacob be able to snatch the extra points for the battle P9? In a slipstream all the way down to Ravazza. The double left hand corner. Very easy to mess up there. Around the curves, however, is very close. 3 tenths it is. He will have the DRS this time by. Will he be able to speed past? He sits in the slipstream for a long time. Ducks out to the inside line and makes the move stick. Jacobs now up into 8th place. Goldthorpe falling behind. However, 2 tenths is only the gap between these two. Will Goldthorpe be able to strike back? Will he remain in striking distance of Jacob? Okay, Jacob does have the ultimate pace, but will Goldthorpe be able to catch? 7 tenths it is now. Almost 8 tenths going through Piratella. I don't quite think he'll be able to hold it. However, if Jacob does make a mistake, it could still be anyone's game, as 9 tenths it is now coming into the top chicane. As it looks like Augland had an incident himself. We're going to watch the action replay here today to see what happened. He was coming to Aki Minerali and he just spins around. His rear tyre is just not giving him the grip that he wanted. Very, very unfortunate for a Norwegian driver. He sits down in 7th place. Our highest climber at the moment, Frank Beezer, in 6th place, up 7 spots from where he started. Doing a brilliant job there. However, back to the battle for the leads. The white flag flies. The final lap of the race. The gap is 1.8 seconds. Larson has been able to close it, and he was 3 tenths quicker last time by, sending a 1:17.5 compared to the 0.8 of Schilter. For Schilter, all he has to do is keep it together as we hear tyres sliding and that gap getting bigger and bigger. Larson spun. Larson has gone off the track. We're going to have to see a replay of that one. We're coming into turn 1 on the brakes. Hits that inside curve very, very hard. It just seems to disturb the car. So what seemed like a certain P2 has fallen away from him once again. It's not the first time we've seen this. However, during that, Riley had an incident as well. Riley Jacob here is going into the Variante Alta and does exactly what Charles Leclerc does, mounting that last inside curb far too much as he loses that 8th place. Schilter has an easy job now. All he has to do is make it through the final corner and the win is his. 15 seconds to P2. He crossed the line to win the sprint race here in San Marino. He will be a very, very happy man with that one. He's withstood the pressure and he dealt with it incredibly well, bringing home a well-deserved win. Andrew Bedrosian in 2nd place, crossed the line. A brilliant result for him as well, as Schlegel 4 seconds behind. also crossed the line to round out the podium. 3 drivers very, very deserving. May not have had the best of results last time out. Schulter, having the unlucky feature race with the fuel, was able to get it back together. And he wins the race, which is really what he wanted. Retribution for his mistakes with the fueling. And he made it all up. As Riley Jacob crossed the line to be the final man. Haugland's still on track here. He still has to cross the line. Finally he does. That means we can pull up our final race results for the sprint race here tonight. If they'll come up is the big question. No. Of course. Apologies for the issues here. We'll just have to read off the timing tower. However, Schulter coming home in first. Bedrosian coming home in second. Schlegel rounding out the podium. Braber and Beezer running out your top 5. Haugland, Goldthorpe and Jacob finishing in 8th. Larson in 9th. Ponce 10th. And Alexander Shanna 11th place. Chapelone 12th. And Jacob Beezer rounding out your grid here tonight. Finishing in 13th place. Now then. A lot of action here today. And we've seen maybe the gaps, even if they start to get big, the race definitely is not over. With strategy and fueling, definitely means it all. We'll just see if we may be able to get some drivers up or the post-race interviews. However, as we reflect on an action-packed weekend, I can say that we've definitely enjoyed watching it. I've definitely enjoyed commentating on it. A lot of drivers making retribution for early mistakes. And a lot of, yeah, this sprint race definitely did shake up the grid. And some faces we saw who definitely have the pace, not quite able to make ends meet. Haugland finishing in P6, and Jacob Riley, after that late mistake, finishing in P8 behind Ben Goldthorpe. So as long as you keep the car in a straight line, it proves that it definitely will pay dividends in the results. Now then, if you can get a replay of that start, I would very much like to see the drama that went on there. Put it back. So here we'll watch a sprint race. So we can see a lot of people getting loose out there at the back on the start. Maybe giving it a little bit too much juice there. We'll watch that once again. On the onboard of Riley Jacob, we'll see what happened on his end that got him involved in the incident to begin with. After winning the feature race, he gets a good start. It goes off to the right hand side. You can see the cars on the left. Just about avoids them, avoids that, and goes into his teammate there. Both wheels coming loose. So he did all he could there, but it wasn't quite enough, unfortunately. I'll watch that in a quarter speed as we just review exactly what happened there. Try and get a better view of that one. So watch the start. So you can see this car gets a really, really bad start. It causes behind. Who is that? Look, yeah, there's Alexander Shanna who's out front. Who was out there was involved in the incident? But it looks like some cars getting slow off the line and just cause absolute chaos as people try to go around them. So just proving how difficult the car is on power, and the torque to handle these things is just so incredibly difficult. However, we're going to get our interviews up. Riley Jacob winning the feature race with an absolutely dominant performance. What exactly happened there that allowed you to put ends together?
Well, just building a gap in those first opening laps was the key part, and then after that it becomes risk management around Imola because of the curbs and the ground effect car. Can't really hit those curbs too hard or you're done. Race over.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of drivers hitting those curbs very hard and losing the rear end. But yeah, a dominant performance there. What quite happened at the beginning of the sprint race? We watched the replay, but there isn't really a whole lot you could have done.
No, me and Oyvind both just kind of parted our way through the traffic and ended up just colliding together, and there's just nothing really you could have done right there, but chaotic, fun. I enjoyed it still.
Yeah, definitely a good start to the league. Positive start. Before we sign off, is any friends, family, sponsors you'd like to thank?
Shout out to Racing Labs Esports out of Norway. That's the team I'm filling in for with Oyvind.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jacob. See you next time.
Thank you.
Well, Shilter then, winning that sprint race. An absolutely brilliant result for you after a less fortunate feature race. How would you like to reflect on your performance?
Hey, Finley, thank you. I'm not sure. So I feel like the feature race went wrong like every couple laps. Something happened. I had 15x by lap 20, so I had 12 laps to go without any off track. Otherwise, I would have gotten a drive through. So I thought I'll take P3. I'll take it easy and maybe don't fight Oyvind.
Yeah.
But then with 3 laps to go, I actually realized that I had only fuel for 2 laps left. So I had to try to make it these 2 laps. And I think I made it, but yeah, I got overtaken by a few.
Yeah, it was very close. Very unfortunate that you lost those positions. However, coming back in the sprint race, coming home with that first place, surely you've got to be happy with that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I got lucky that most of the people crashed during the start, so I just had to make it through clean. But yeah, also congrats on the podium for the feature race. Really good job and good pace.
Yeah, it was brilliant. However, your battle with Frederick Larson there, him having to spin out, how much pressure did you feel after you started to well, yeah, throughout that battle, what were you going through in your head?
For the sprint race?
Yeah, for the sprint race, whilst you were battling.
Well, I felt like I had enough time left, so I didn't. Yeah, I just tried not to spin, basically, not to make any mistake, and then wait for DRS, and then hopefully overtake him, and maybe be able to pull away a little bit.
Yeah, I was more referring to your battle, excuse me, with Frederick Larson. Through those early laps, you were back and forth in the DRS zone. However, he then made a mistake coming out of the final corner, and that DRS went away. I was referring to that. What was going through your head during that battle? Were you trying to keep it clean, or were you trying to get the most you could out of the car?
Yeah, I think I tried to keep it clean. I just didn't want to throw it away, basically.
Yeah, we all think you did a good job.
I don't really remember actually what happened.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, a lot did happen in that race. But before we sign off, is there like any friends, family, sponsors you'd like to shout out before we go?
Just my team, I guess, and my teammates. Yeah, Ben had a bit of unlucky race, I would say. He had super fast pace, but unfortunately he was involved in some incidents, I think.
Well, good to talk to you, Ron, and hopefully we'll see you next time.
Yeah, The team is Intense Sim Racing, by the way.
Hey. Now we speak to Andrew Bedrossi, and I'm sorry if I've been butchering your name the entire race. I'm incredibly sorry. But yeah, coming home in P2 in that sprint race, that's a really good result for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, going through that race, you capitalised on a lot of mistakes there. What was the strategy going into the sprint? Were you trying to give it all, or were you trying to make sure you keep it clean and just pick up what points you could?
Yeah, I mean, I noticed in the feature race that most people were making mistakes, going off track, spinning out. That's usually kind of the strategy when it comes to these F1 cars because they have a lot of power, a lot of torque, and pretty much anybody can make mistakes. So just try to keep it clean and finish your race.
Yeah, 100%. Compared to last year's cars, the 2021 cars, how different are these new Formula 1 cars with ground effect to drive?
I mean, the older W12, it's just smooth around this track. Like, there's really not much oversteer with it. But with these, it's a little bit iffy. You really never know when you're gonna when it's gonna snap. Like, you could hit a curb with the W12 and it'd be pretty much fine. But with this W13, it's like you really never know what you're gonna get.
Yeah,
So
the combination with the stiff suspension and the ground effect means you don't have enough aero, and the
yeah.
bumps and all the curbs just mean so much. We saw a lot of drivers falling fault to that, losing it on the rear end, out of the Tosa hairpin and the Variante Alta, in Charles Leclerc fashion, just like he did in real life. But yeah, a really good result for you, bringing home good points. It is only the first race of the season, so anything could change. However, I'm sure you're happy with that. Anyway,
It's a real great race, but
before we sign off, is any friends, family, sponsors you'd like to give a massive shout out to?
I really gotta thank Knox Racing Team for bringing me on. It's a lot of fun to drive these cars, and hopefully I can get more good results for it.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. Hopefully speak to you next time.
Thank you.
See ya. Now, Olivand, a very, very eventful weekend for sure for you, as we thought maybe you'd lost that P2 after that mistake, but you managed to get it back and finish P2, bringing home the points with the 1-2 for the team. Just give us a run through on that whole feature race, really, from your perspective.
Yeah, that was crazy. I was quite slow in the beginning, so I tried to just manage the gap to Riley, and then other pits. Of course, I figured, in turn two the the sausage curbs are quite dodgy, so I thought I would just shave them down a little bit, and then almost take myself out of the race. And then I had a really fun race after that. So it was really fun.
Yeah.
But, of course, Riley was long gone though.
For sure. He definitely seemed like he had the pace, but after about 5 laps, you were able to control that gap and keep it around 4.3 seconds. What was different in the beginning? Was he just pushing really hard, or did it just take you a while to get into the rhythm?
I think it was just a difference in the setup. So I think no, I'm not sure. I'm actually not quite sure. Sometimes I just take a setup and I take the qualifying setup and add fuel, meaning that I have a really good car towards the end of the race.
Yeah.
And not that good in the beginning. But I think his pace was just a little bit quicker than me. So all hats off to him. 1-0. But as long as Racing Lab is winning, we're all good.
Yeah, bringing home a 1-2 for the team in the feature race was definitely a good result. However, a very chaotic start to the beginning of the sprint race. What, from your perspective, went on there?
I have no idea. So I actually cleared quite a few cars, and then I kind of felt like Moses in the big incident because I just went straight through it. But of course, Riley, he was on the right side then, and he had a guy that came into his lane, so he had to move over, and then we had contact. And yeah, after that, it was just trying to save as many points as possible. And I'm not sure if you get a point for it, but I tried my best to get the fastest lap as well.
Yeah. It was a brilliant show, for sure. yeah, before we sign off, is there any friends, family, sponsors you'd like to give a shout out to?
Oh, Racing Lab is the shit. Best team ever. And also I wanna thank my girlfriend. We're having a date tonight, and I'm
Oh.
so late, so I'm in trouble. So she's the most patient person ever. And
Sim
also
racing's
thanks to
always
you
more
guys.
important.
Thank you so much to you guys that set up this league. I'm so excited to drive in it, and thank you for doing the broadcast and everything. So I really appreciate that. So thank you very much to you guys.
Thank you too. Yeah, hopefully we'll speak to you next time.
Yes. See ya.
See ya. Now then, Schlegel, a very, very how would I say it, drama-filled weekend for sure. However, just speak through what was your perspective, like what happened during the feature race.
To be honest, the feature race for me myself was pretty boring. I was racing by myself, and so it was kind of a risk management kind of race.
Yeah.
I mean, I was running P4 most of the time, and then Rolly had his issues, unfortunately. But yeah, I would have taken P4 because that was just my pace. But if the other guys are having issues, you just gotta take advantage of that.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to take advantage of other people's mistakes, and you definitely did a very good job of that, finishing third in that sprint race, which is a brilliant result. In the feature race, though, what was kind of the ideology going behind that? What was your idea going into it? Were you going to try and push as hard as you can, or was it managing the tires or fuel? What was kind of the main thing you were focusing on?
The main thing was just getting through the first few laps without any incidents, and then kind of look about, you know, how much I can hang with the faster guys in front of me, and then basically they were just too fast, and from that point on it was just risk management.
Yeah. Oh, a brilliant job from you, bringing home the points, which is exactly what you need. Yeah, is there any friends, family, sponsors you'd like to give a shout out before we sign off here tonight?
Well, I just wanna thank my teammates for this race, Marian and Rolly and Ben, and they had a very good race as well. I think Ben unfortunately had his issues, but you know, such races just happen. There's gonna be better races for him, I'm sure. And yeah, for me, I'm happy with the start to this season.
Yeah, definitely a solid start. Hopefully, we'll speak to you next time.
Thank you.
See ya. Those were your drivers for the short interviews we had tonight. Before we sign off, we'd like to give a massive thank you to you guys at home watching. It's been a brilliant race. I've enjoyed this one, and we'll be back next week at the same time with the full race. Very, very shortly. As I said before, the beginning of the feature race, we've recorded the whole event and will be uploaded onto YouTube, so you will not miss anything that went on. But on behalf of Team Goon Squad, I'd like to wish you a very happy new year, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.